The rain hammered the terracotta roof like 1,000 tiny fists, drowning out the distant crash of waves against the cliffs of Tarifa. I stood in the doorway of my rented finca, the wind whipping my hair into a frenzy, and shoved a crumpled 20-euro note into the pizza girl's hand, more than double what the pie was worth. "Keep the change," I muttered, my voice barely audible over the storm. She paused, her bike helmet tucked under one arm, rain sluicing down her face like tears she refused to shed, and looked at me not with the expected gratitude, but with eyes that pierced straight through the armor I'd built around my shattered heart. That look, it was the first crack in the wall I'd erected since fleeing New York 6 months ago, chasing some half-baked dream of reinvention in this windswept corner of Spain. Sydney Harper, 32, and unraveling at the seams, reduced to ordering greasy comfort food from a hole-in-the-wall pizzeria in the middle of nowhere because cooking for one felt like admitting defeat. The pizza box grew soggy in my grip as she tilted her head, water dripping from the brim of her cap. "You okay in there?" she asked, her American accent cutting through the Spanish downpour like a lifeline from home. No one had asked me that in months, not my estranged family back in Brooklyn, not the locals who nodded politely at the gringa loca sketching feverishly in the plaza. I slammed the door before the sob could escape, but her voice lingered, a ghost in the flickering candlelight. I devoured the pizza alone at the scarred wooden table, cheese stringing like regret between bites, the storm outside mirroring the one raging in my chest. Why had I come here? To outrun the betrayal of Elena, my ex, who'd shattered our 5-year life with a single text, "I'm in love with someone else. It's over." She'd chosen her high-powered gallery job in Manhattan over us, over me, leaving me to pick up the pieces of a love I'd poured my soul into. My paintings, abstract swirls of color that once sold for thousands, now gathered dust in the corner, unfinished canvases mocking my paralysis. Spain was supposed to be my salve, the raw beauty of the Strait of Gibraltar, where Africa kissed Europe, winds that whispered secrets of forgotten lovers. Instead, it was isolation, the kind that clawed at your insides until you forgot what human touch felt like. The next morning, the sky hung low and bruised, but the rain had relented to a misty drizzle. I wandered into town, my sketchpad tucked under my arm like a shield, boots squelching on the cobblestones of Tarifa's old quarter. The air smelled of salt and fresh churros from the market stalls, fishermen hauling their catch while surfers waxed boards for the afternoon swells. I found a bench overlooking the harbor, the wind tugging at my scarf, and tried to capture the chaos, gulls wheeling like frantic thoughts, boats bobbing like half-sunk dreams. But my pencil faltered, lines blurring into the vague shape of a face, hers. The pizza girl. What was her name? Did it matter? Fate, or maybe just small-town coincidence, conspired against my solitude that afternoon. As I queued at the bakery for a loaf of pan de centeno, a voice called out from behind the counter. "Extra tip yesterday." Bold move for a margarita. I turned, heart stuttering, and there she was, sans helmet, her blonde hair cropped short and tousled, a smudge of flour on her cheek like war paint. Up close, she was younger than I'd thought, maybe 28, with the lean build of someone who spent her days pedaling through hills and her nights chasing waves. Her name tag read Taylor, pinned crookedly to a faded red polo that screamed chain store uniform. "Taylor," I said, the word tasting foreign on my tongue, like testing the waters of a new sea. It was soggy anyway. "Figured you earned hazard pay for the typhoon delivery." She laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gale, bright, unforced, slicing through my defenses. "Soggy's my specialty. Grew up in San Diego, we've got a patent on it." "You? Not from around here, right?" That accent's pure East Coast frostbite. "Brooklyn," I admitted, handing over coins for the bread. Our fingers brushed, a spark that had nothing to do with static and everything to do with the sudden ache of connection. "Sydney. Here on. Sabbatical. Artist sabbatical. Sounds pretentious, I know. Doesn't to me." She leaned on the counter, green eyes appraising, not pitying. "Tarifa's got a way of drawing in the lost ones. Surfers, kiteboarders, painters chasing the light. What flavor of lost are you?" The question hung there, heavy as the fog rolling in from the Atlantic. I could have lied, spun some tale of inspiration and wanderlust. Instead, the truth tumbled out, raw and unpolished, the kind that comes with a broken engagement and a one-way ticket. Elena, she left me for her career. Or maybe just for someone easier to love. I thought the ocean might wash it away, but it just keeps crashing back. Taylor's expression softened, no judgment, just a quiet nod that said she'd been there too. Ouch. Mine was a fiancé who bailed right before the wedding. Said I was too nomadic for her picket fence dreams. That was back in Cali, 2 years ago. Landed here on a whim, pizza by day, waves by night. Turns out, the best way to heal is to let the current take you where it wants. We talked until her shift ended, words flowing like the wine we'd share later that week, first over tapas at a harborside bar, then walks along the playa where kites dotted the sky like colorful prayers. Taylor was a force, ex-Marine turned surf instructor, with stories of deployments in the Middle East that left scars you could see in her quick glances at the horizon, and a laugh that could coax the sun from behind clouds. She didn't push, didn't pry, but in her presence, the knot in my chest loosened, thread by thread. By the end of the month, our accidental run-ins had evolved into intentional evenings, her teaching me to balance on a board in the shallows, salt water stinging my eyes as I fell, her hand steadying my waist with a touch that lingered just long enough to ignite something dormant. "You're a natural," she'd say, even as I sputtered and laughed, the sound foreign in my throat. And I believed her, because in those moments, with the wind in our hair and the world reduced to foam and blue, I felt seen, not as Sydney the failure, but as Sydney the survivor. But shadows have a way of creeping in with the tide. One night, as we sat on my finca's balcony, stars pricking the velvet sky, Taylor's phone buzzed insistently. She silenced it twice, then excused herself to the kitchen. I caught fragments. "Yeah, I know. It's complicated." "No, not yet." When she returned, her smile was strained, eyes averted to the horizon where Morocco's silhouette loomed like a secret. "Who was that?" I asked, casual as I could manage, pouring us more Rioja. "Just an old friend from back home. Nothing important." But the lie hung between us, acrid as smoke from a distant wildfire. I let it slide, chalking it up to the ghosts we both carried. Trust, after all, is a fragile thing, rebuilt one wave at a time. Little did I know, the undertow was stronger than I imagined. The summer heat descended on Tarifa like a fever dream, turning the air thick and golden, the kind that made every breath feel like sipping honey. Taylor and I fell into a rhythm that felt dangerously like home, mornings sketching the lighthouse at Punta Paloma while she caught dawn patrols on her board, afternoons tangled in lazy conversations over iced horchata at Café Central, evenings where the line between friendship and something more blurred under the spell of flamenco drifting from hidden tabernas. She had this way of listening, really listening, that made my stories spill out like paint on canvas, vivid and unapologetic. The betrayal with Elena, the pressure from my family to settle down, with a man who checked all the boxes except the one that mattered, my heart. Taylor never interrupted, just traced patterns in the sand with her toe, her silence a bomb. "You're brave, you know that," she said one afternoon, as we hiked the coastal path to Los Lances Beach, backpacks heavy with figs and manchego cheese pilfered from the market. Sweat beaded on her forehead, her tank top clinging in ways that made my pulse stutter, but it was her words that undid me. Packing up and crossing an ocean. Most people would have curled up in their apartment with Netflix and Ben and Jerry's. You chased the light. Brave. The word echoed, foreign and flattering. I'd always seen myself as the coward, the one who'd ignored the red flags with Elena for years, too afraid of loneliness to walk away first. "Flattery will get you extra slices of tortilla," I teased, bumping her shoulder with mine. Our laughter mingled with the cicada's hum, easy as breathing. But ease breeds vulnerability, and vulnerability invites the storm. It started small, more late-night calls that pulled Taylor away mid-sentence, her explanations growing thinner, work stuff, family drama. Then came the texts I glimpsed over her shoulder at the bar, "We need to talk. I'm coming to Spain. From someone named Jade, with heart emojis that twisted like barbed wire in my gut. I didn't ask. Pride or fear, I'm not sure which, kept my mouth shut. Instead, I poured it into my art, canvases exploding with cerulean blues and fiery ochres, the clash of sea and sky mirroring the turmoil I wouldn't name. The high tide of our summer crested in August, during the Feria de la Virgen del Carmen. The town erupted in color, streets alive with polka-dotted dresses, brass bands marching to the rhythm of castanets, bonfires crackling on the beach where locals and expats danced until dawn. Taylor had convinced me to join, dragging me into a rented traje flamenco that hugged my curves like a lover's whisper, red ruffles cascading like spilled wine. "You look like you were born to this," she murmured, adjusting the flower in my hair, her fingers grazing my neck and sending shivers that had nothing to do with the evening chill. We twirled under strings of fairy lights, her hands on my waist guiding me through steps I mangled hilariously, the world narrowing to the heat of her body against mine. The music swelled, a haunting guitar solo that pulled at something primal, and in a haze of sangria and starlight, I leaned in. Our lips met, soft at first, tentative, then deepening with the urgency of waves reclaiming the shore. She tasted like salt in summer, her arms wrapping around me as if I'd vanish if she let go. The crowd blurred into irrelevance, there was only us, this electric pulse that rewrote my loneliness into longing. We stumbled back to the finca as the first light pinked the horizon, hands intertwined, kisses stolen in shadowed alleys. On the balcony, with the festival's distant echoes fading, Taylor pulled me close. "Sydney," she whispered, her voice rough with emotion, "I've been running from this, from feeling this much. But you make me want to stay." Tears pricked my eyes, not from joy alone, but from the terror of hope. "Then stay," I breathed, tracing the scar on her collarbone, a faint line from her marine days. We made love, not in the frantic way of movies, but slow, reverent, bodies mapping each other's stories in whispers and sighs. It was the first time since Elena that I'd let myself be vulnerable, skin to skin, heart laid bare. The idyll shattered 2 weeks later, on a day that dawned too perfect, cloudless sky, the strait glittering like shattered glass. Taylor had promised a surprise, a picnic at the hidden cove near Bologna, where Roman ruins whispered of empires long fallen. I packed the basket with her favorites, olives stuffed with anchovies, crusty bread, and that cheap Rioja we pretended was fine wine. But as I waited on the path, sketchpad idle, a car pulled up, not her battered Vespa, but a sleek rental Audi, dust swirling in its wake. Jade stepped out first, tall, polished, with the kind of effortless beauty that came from trust funds and TED Talks, long dark hair in a sleek ponytail, designer sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. And then Taylor emerged from the passenger side, her face ashen, eyes pleading as they met mine. "Sydney," she started, voice cracking like dry earth, this is Jade. My ex. She's here because..." "Save it," I cut in, the basket slipping from my numb fingers, cheese rolling into the dust like fallen soldiers. Jade extended a hand, manicured and cool, but I recoiled as if burned. "Ex? Or current complication?" "I've seen the texts, Taylor. The hearts. We need to talk." Jade's lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes, sympathy laced with triumph. "I'm sorry you got caught in the middle. Taylor and we have history. 5 years, a ring, plans. She left, but I never stopped fighting for us. I flew in from San Francisco to remind her what real commitment looks like." Taylor flinched, stepping forward, hands outstretched. "It's not like that." Jade showed up unannounced. "I was going to tell you, God, I wanted to. But you and me, Sid. It's real. She's just unfinished business. Unfinished business." The words landed like a slap, echoing Elena's excuses in my mind. Betrayal's bitter taste flooded my mouth, hot and metallic. "Real? While you're whispering sweet nothings to her on the phone. While I'm spilling my guts, thinking we're building something." My voice rose, cracking on the cliffs, gulls scattering in alarm. I tipped you that night because you looked at me like I mattered. And now? You're just another wave crashing over me, pulling me under. I turned, boots pounding the path back to town, tears blurring the ruins into ghosts. Behind me, their voices tangled, Taylor's pleas, Jade's calm reassurances, like a duet I never auditioned for. By the time I reached the finca, the door slamming like a guillotine, the storm I'd sensed brewing had broken wide open. Not rain this time, but the raw, howling gale of a heart fracturing anew. The days that followed blurred into a haze of salt-stung eyes and half-finished sketches, the finca's walls closing in like a too-tight embrace. I avoided the harbor, the bakery, anywhere Taylor's ghost might linger, her laugh in the wind, her silhouette on a distant board slicing through swells. Tarifa, once a sanctuary, now mocked me with its relentless beauty, azure skies that deepened my blues, lovers strolling hand in hand down Calle San Francisco, their joy a knife twist in my ribs. I painted furiously, canvases weeping crimson and indigo, abstracts that screamed what words couldn't. Why does love always demand a pound of flesh? Taylor's texts came in waves, first apologetic torrents, please, Sid. Let me explain. Jade's gone back. It was a mistake. Then, as silence stretched, please laced with poetry, you're the light I didn't know I was chasing. Don't let her shadow eclipse us. I read them in the dead of night, thumb hovering over reply, heart a battlefield of wanton wariness. Delete. Repeat. Betrayal wasn't just her divided loyalties, it was the mirror it held up to my own fragility, the reminder that I'd let her in too fast, too deep, after vowing never again. A week in, the confrontation came unbidden. I was at the mercado, fingering overripe peaches that bruised under my touch like my resolve, when her shadow fell across the stall. Taylor stood there, uncharacteristically disheveled, hair uncombed, eyes ringed with the purple of sleepless nights, her surf hoodie zipped to her chin as if armor against the stares of vendors who sense drama like sharks scent blood. Sydney. My name on her lips was a plea, raw and ragged. The market noise faded, the haggling over sardines, the clatter of crates, to leave only the thud of my pulse. Not here, I hissed, dropping the fruit and striding toward the alley behind the fishmongers, where the air reeked of brine and regret. She followed, a shadow I couldn't outrun. What do you want, Taylor? Absolution. A sequel to your little love triangle. She leaned against the peeling stucco wall, arms crossed like a barrier. The truth. All of it. Jade and I, we were engaged, yeah. Toxic from the start, her ambition clashing with my wanderlust. She proposed in a boardroom, for God's sake, like checking off a life goal. I said yes because I was scared of being alone after the Corps, after losing buddies overseas. But it imploded 6 months before I came here. She cheated first, with her assistant, some power play bullshit. I left, but guilt kept me tethered. Those calls. Her begging me to forgive, to come back to fix us. I didn't tell you because I was ashamed. And terrified of losing what we had. Her words hung heavy, laced with the vulnerability I'd fallen for that rainy night. But trust, once cracked, doesn't mend with explanations alone. Ashamed? Or just hedging your bets? Keeping me as the Spanish fling while she dangled the American dream. My voice trembled, fists clenched to stem the tide. I came here to heal, Taylor. Not to play second fiddle to your ex's mile-high club redemption tour. Tears welled in her eyes, spilling over like the first drops of an oncoming squall. Second fiddle. Sid, you're the whole damn symphony. Jade's the echo I couldn't silence, but you're the song I want to sing forever. I told her to go, for good this time. Blocked her number, everything. But I get it if that's not enough. If I've ruined us. The alley spun, emotions colliding like storm fronts, rage at her secrecy, pity for her pain, and beneath it all, that stubborn spark of love refusing to gut her out. I wanted to scream, to shove her away, but instead, I stepped closer, our breaths mingling in the narrow space. How do I know this isn't just another chapter in your nomadic bullshit? That when the next wind blows, you won't sail off again. She reached for my hand, tentative, and I didn't pull away. Her palm was calloused from board wax and bike grips, grounding me. Because I've stopped running. Stay with me, here, in Tarifa. Or wherever you go next. Let me prove it. We stood there, locked in impasse, until the church bells tolled vespers, calling the faithful to prayer. I slipped my hand from hers, not a rejection, but a pause. Prove it, then. But slowly. No grand gestures. Just. Show up. She nodded, a fragile truce dawning in her smile. And she did, small acts accumulating like seashells on the tide, a sketchpad left on my doorstep with wildflowers pressed between pages, notes in her scrawled hand, saw this goal, thought of your laugh. Mornings at the beach, her watching patiently as I sketched, no pressure for more than shared silence. Evenings where we talk, not just our wounds, but dreams, her whisper of opening a surf school for at-risk kids, inspired by her own lost youth, my confession of exhibiting in Madrid, turning pain into pigment. Yet the conflict simmered, fed by my doubts and her unspoken fears. Jade's shadow lingered in late-night what-ifs, and Tarifa's insularity amplified every whisper, gossip from the pizzeria about the pizza girl and her gringa artist, laced with judgment that stung like sea urchin spines. One evening, as we walked the cliff path, the sun dipping blood orange into the sea, Taylor halted abruptly. What if I'm not enough? What if my baggage drags you down? The question cracked me open, vulnerability mirroring hers. We're both baggage handlers, Tay. But together. Maybe we lighten the load. We kissed then, fierce and forgiving, the wind whipping around us like applause. For a moment, the world aligned, love's fragile geometry holding true. But climax waits for no idol. 2 nights later, as thunder rumbled over the strait, a knock shattered the quiet. Not Taylor's soft rap, but insistent, foreign. I opened the door to Jade, alone this time, no rental car fanfare, but her presence a thunderclap. Rain plastered her hair, mascara streaking like war paint, eyes wild with desperation. He's not worth it, she spat, no preamble, voice slicing the air. Taylor. She's a drifter. Always will be. I know her, better than you ever could. She'll break you, just like she broke me. Jade's words landed like shrapnel, embedding in the raw edges of my healing heart. She stood there, drenched and defiant, a specter from Taylor's past invading my present. The Finca's lanterns cast flickering shadows across her face, twisting her beauty into something feral. What the hell are you doing here? I demanded, gripping the doorframe to steady the tremor in my limbs. Rain lashed the porch, mirroring the chaos within. I came for her, Jade said, chin lifted, voice steady despite the quiver in her hands. To save her from this delusion. You think a few months in some backwater town fixes what's broken? Taylor needs structure, stability, not your bohemian fantasy. She's using you to avoid the real work, Sydney. The therapy, the commitments. I love her enough to fight dirty. Love. The word weaponized, hurled like an accusation. I wanted to slam the door, to banish her with the fury boiling in my veins, but doubt rooted me. Was she right? Had Taylor and I built a castle on sand, romanticizing our scars instead of mending them? Elena's ghost whispered agreement, her abandonment a blueprint for this fresh wound. Get out, I finally choked, stepping back as if her proximity contaminated the air. You're not welcome here. Not in our story. Jade's laugh was bitter, hollow. Our story. Wake up. She's already halfway back to me in her head. Check her email, tickets booked to SFO next month. She didn't tell you, did she? Too chicken, like always. She thrust a printed confirmation under my nose, ink blurring in the wet, but the date's clear, Taylor's name, a return flight, one way out. The door clicked shut behind her retreating footsteps, but the damage echoed. I sank to the floor, paper crumpling in my fist, sobs racking me like the gale outside. Betrayal's second act, deeper this time, because I'd dared to hope. Dawn found me curled on the rug, eyes swollen, resolve hardening into resolve, pack, leave, before Tarifa claimed another piece of my soul. Taylor arrived at noon, bearing croissants and contrition, oblivious to the rift. Missed you last night, Storm kept me pinned at the flat. Her kiss landed soft on my cheek, but I recoiled, the email burning in my pocket like contraband. Tickets to San Francisco, I said flatly, holding it out. Her face drained of color, the betrayal in her eyes mirroring mine, no denial, just devastation. Sid, it's not, God, no. Jade must have. I booked them months ago, before us, as an escape hatch if things went south here. I forgot to cancel, I swear. With her showing up, it slipped. But I'm not going. I tore them up yesterday. The lie, or half-truth, hung tenuous. For the first time, I saw the fractures in her armor, the nomad's itch, the fear of roots that bound too tight. Forgot. Or kept as a parachute. Jade says you're deluding yourself. That I'm the interlude, not the endgame. Taylor's jaw tightened, green eyes flashing storm. Jade's poison, Sid. She twists everything to win. But if you believe her over me. She trailed off, voice breaking. Maybe she's right. Maybe I am too broken for this, for you. The room tilted, accusations flying like debris in a hurricane. I hurled my fears, you hide, Taylor. Calls, secrets, I'm tired of piecing together your puzzles. She countered with her own, and you armor up so thick, I can't reach you. One doubt, and you bolt, like I'm Elena 2.0. Words escalated to shouts, then silence, thick as fog. She grabbed her jacket, doors slamming in her wake, leaving me adrift in the wreckage. Days bled into a numb routine, solitary walks where the wind scoured my thoughts clean, canvases abandoned, appetite vanished. Friends, scarce as they were, noticed, Maria from the bakery slipping me extra empanadas with worried glances, the surf shop owner nodding solemnly when I passed without stopping. The turning point came on the eve of the equinox, Tarifa's winds howling prophecies. I climbed to the old watchtower on the headland, sketchpad forgotten, just me and the abyss. Below, waves gnashed like jaws, above, stars wheeled indifferent. In that void, clarity crashed over me, not as blame, but understanding. Love wasn't absence of storm, it was choosing to rebuild after. Taylor's flight tickets. A symptom of her fear, not malice. My walls. Echoes of old wounds, not wisdom. I found her at the beach, bored underarm, staring at the surf as if answers hid in the curl. Salt crusted her lashes, voice hoarse when she turned. I sold the Vespa. Used the money for a down payment on that little casita by the dunes. Roots, Sid. For us, if you'll have me. No grand apology, just action, tangible, terrifying commitment. I crossed the sand, taking her hand, the contact electric as our first brush. I saw Jade, I confessed. Believed her lies because they fit my fears. But we're more than our ghosts, Tay. Human, messy, worth the fight. We sank to the wet sand, foreheads touching, tears mingling with sea spray. No declarations, just presence, the quiet revolution of two souls anchoring each other. The waves approved, rolling gentler now, as if the ocean itself exhaled. Months later, as autumn painted the cliffs in rust and gold, my Madrid exhibition opened to murmurs of acclaim, paintings born of U.S., of betrayal transmuted to beauty. Taylor stood beside me in the gallery's hush, her hand in mine, green eyes proud. We'd weathered the gale, emerging scarred but steadfast. Not perfect, but human, two women choosing, daily, to tip the scales toward kindness, toward staying. In Tarifa's eternal wind, love wasn't a fairy tale, it was the courage to order pizza in the rain, to let a stranger melt the fear, and build a life from the soggy slices left behind.